Hi, I hope you're good. So a couple of weeks back I uploaded a video called 80s chord voicing tutorial where I showed you how to take a chord pattern and voice it in a kind of 80s way. And that seemed to go down quite well. It was useful to a number of you, which is great. And a couple of you sparked the idea of doing a 70s one or a 60s one or a different decade, and I thought a 70s one wouldn't be too hard to do, so here we are. So obviously 70s is a massive decade with loads of different genres of music within it, so this is kind of like one area of 70s music, kind of that Chicago, ELO, 10cc, Supertramp, Elton John type area. So let's dig in. So we're in the key of E, and we start with this. So what is that? So we've got an A chord in the right hand, just bog standard A, but it's over B. So you could describe that as A/B or A over B, or you can describe it as something else, which I'll get onto in a second. And via a little melodic run, we just go to a B in first inversion, also over B. Now, we're in the key of E, and basically this whole thing is a big 5/1 cadence. It's just all setting up that home chord. Your ear is wanting to go there. It's drawing your ear to come to the one chord, but it's doing it in a slightly more elaborate way and in a very 70s way. So this chord here, you can view that as A over B, but you can actually view it as a dominant chord, as B11. How is that B11? Well, if you had B, root 3rd and 5th, then you had the flat 7, you've got a dominant 7th chord, then you add the 9th, then you add the 11, and you drop the 3rd and 5th, and you're left with that, the A chord over B. So it's kind of like a B11, which is a kind of dominant chord. So it's like you're just going between two dominant chords. Because it's also implied that that is actually B7 rather than just B because of what we've just done before it. So it's just a slightly more elaborate way of going from 5 to 1. It's also like a suspension because you get this between those two chords. So it's like a 5/1 with an added suspension to milk it even more. Now that thing, that 11 chord thing, is all over the 70s. So many songs use it, and moving them around. I'll think of some songs that do it, and I'll put some links in the description. So that's that, and that's why I've used that, because it's a very 70s thing. And then we get into this kind of verse section. So that's a very 70s move as well to me. So 70s, different from 80s. Major 7 chords and major 9 chords are everywhere. And this is effectively that. So instead of just playing a major 9 chord or a major 7, we're just doing it in a slightly more musical way. So we're moving from one chord to the other. So it's like E to B. That's a B chord, but because it's over E, it's more implied that it's one chord just with some movement in it. And then down to C sharp. And the same thing in the right hand, and that works because they're the relative major and minor. Then we go to chord 4, but we do it major 7 because major 7s are everywhere and major 9s. And we do this little move, so it's A, E, C sharp, E, and G sharp. So we make a little melody out of it. There's that little bit, and then we do, which is the weepiest chord of all time, A minor, major 7, which is a minor chord with a major 7. And we do a little move like that, a little melody within it. Now this is just reminding me of something I forgot to mention in the 80s chord voicing video, which is voice leading and stringing your chords together musically. So if you just plonk chords, they don't really have any thread that holds them together. So in that 80s one, we started with, it's not very musical, and then we turned it into, and And that ties together, one, because the chords are more interesting, but two, because your ear hears. That's what your ear hears. And that's the thread between the chords, and that's the difference between just plonking chords and stringing something together and making them more musical. So that's what I'm trying to do here again. So I'm going. So your ear is very obviously hearing. That's what you're hearing. And that's threading. That sounds more musical than me just plonking, you know. Just plonking chords, right? So where does that minor major 7 chord come from? Well, we need to back up a bit and talk about 70s music in general. In this kind of music, they liked to do a lot of modal mixture, modal interchange, borrowed chords, bend the rules, and make the chord patterns more interesting in quite a different way than they did in the 80s, as we were looking at in the other video. And this is one such example. So in E major, chord 4 is A major, right? And the parallel minor of E major is E minor. And the chord 4 of E minor is A minor. So one of the oldest tricks in the book that was done a lot in the 70s but has been done in loads of other decades is to borrow chord 4 from the parallel minor. So you get this kind of... You've heard that a million times, so that's just borrowing chord 4 from the parallel minor. Now this is similar to that idea, but it's slightly more elaborate because we've got a minor major 7. And that chord isn't in the parallel minor. The parallel minor has just a minor 7. That. So where does minor major 7 come from? It comes from the harmonic minor. So we've borrowed chord 4 from the harmonic minor. Right? And it gives you that really weepy sound. And just introduces some interest. So we've got... And then we go... So that's C to D to E, but all major. So we've borrowed chords from other keys. So C major and D major are not in the key of E major. You'd have C sharp minor and D half diminished, D sharp half diminished. So we've flattened both of those and made them major. But you've heard that a million times, right? Really common move. And then that gets us back to where we were. And then we do this, which is the same as the A major 7, but we're now doing it with D major 7. And then that sets us up for our pre-chorus, which is what we did on the intro. Now to a B, and then invert. And you can keep going if you want. You know, so that's back to that same kind of elaborate 5-1 we were doing, and sets us up for the chorus. E major, and I'm introducing a little sus2, and then that's E augmented, so we've just changed one note. Then we keep going. That's E6, or you could call it C sharp minor over E, but it's more of an E6. And then E7, and then a little run. A major 7, and then this, which I really love. So that is, again, it's a C, D, E. It's that idea, but I've just made it slightly different this time. So we've got that, C, G, B and C, E and B at the top. And this is because I want your ear to hear. Is what I want you to hear, so I put it in there. That's some voice leading again. So that's C, G, B, C, E and B at the top. Then walk down to the A, and then 2 Ds in the left hand end. And that's a D9 chord. So you've got 2 Ds, C, E, F sharp and A. So you've got the 3rd, the 5th, the root, a flat 7 and a 9. So that's a dominant chord. So that's a secondary dominant, because it's a chord other than 5 that we've turned into a dominant chord. And then that brings us back to... And then we walk up via F sharp here to this, which is G sharp 7, which is another secondary dominant, making chord 3 a dominant chord, oldest trick in the book. and then back to A major 7, and then that thing again. And then we just end with a little, just to run down a major 7 chord. So the next thing to do is take this chord pattern that we've written at the piano and go over to the computer and put it in an arrangement and see if we can give it a 70s vibe and see how well it stands up as a kind of 70s thing. So that's basically it for this video. I think that arrangement we've just done demonstrates that we're on the right kind of track for getting that kind of 70s sound. So if that's something you're trying to emulate or go for yourself, hopefully this video is helpful. If it was helpful, let me know. If it wasn't, let me know. If you want me to do any more of these or anything specific, then just put it in the comments below. And once again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.